Hey everyone, welcome back. Welcome to our last beer tasting of 2020. And we're ending on a high note, and/or a sloppy, messy disaster of a note. Time will tell. But we're going to end with the tasting I swore I would never do. We're going to end with Imperial Stout. And thank goodness at least one of them comes in this tiny little can, because we're going to need that. Let's talk a little bit about Imperial Stout very briefly, and I will very quickly get to... oh, I left the volume of my phone on. What a genius I am. Great. So let's talk about Imperial Stout and talk about Stout in general. Stout comes out of the 1600s, where it actually meant strong. And then what we now know as Stout came out of the term Stout Porter or Strong Porter, porter being a very dark beer of the time. Still is. Now, Imperial Stouts were taking that stout, that strong, dark beer, and taking it up to an even higher alcohol. Imperial refers to the fact that these beers were originally by appointment to the Imperial Russian court under the reign of Catherine II. But that's kind of the boring history of them. That's the, well, let's talk about all the history stuff that's probably on Wikipedia and to-d. It's not all that desperately interesting because it doesn't have a whole lot to do with Imperial Stout now. This has been really just our day for this. We just lost half our lighting. Nigel just unplugged it. Okay, that's all right. So where we should really leave off there is the last of the really true traditional Imperial Stouts of the day. Those were kind of Courage's Imperial Stout. Those stuck around till about 1993, brewed off and on. I love that half our rig is just firing up as we go here. That's great. Post-1993, Imperial Stout, as like the old-fashioned kind of British idea of it, disappears. That style effectively becomes extinct. We got comments about all our madness going on here, by the way?
Well, try not to worry about it. I'll figure
Cool
it
enough. I'm not going to drink the whole thing for all four. So 93, the old school dies out. Where do we start talking about Imperial Stout again? Well, not that very long after. About 2001, we start seeing it break into the American scene. 8.9% alcohol in this one, which might be the lightest. Nope. We have one that's lighter. Now, this is not a coffee Imperial Stout or a bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout or whatever the hell all the things was. This is just a straight-up 3-hour boil, incredibly bitter, incredibly roasty, ultra-powerful, very, very chunky Imperial Stout in the classical North American style. So let's talk a little tiny bit about the rebirth of Imperial Stout in kind of the early 2000s. This is where beers like Goose Island Bourbon County Stout, Deschutes the Abyss, this is actually the barrel-aged Abyss? Oh, this is just the Abyss. And finally, Three Floyd's Dark Lord kind of set the stage for this rediscovery of these very dark, very strong beers. And one of the things that came to the fore right away, and was relatively a new thing in terms of how they were produced for general consumption, was aging them in bourbon barrels. The Abyss and the Bourbon County Stout have always been brewed exclusively in bourbon barrels. Dark Lord does actually have a bourbon barrel-aged version of same. It's what is done with Imperial Stouts to the North American style. Now, when we talk about that, we'd have to talk about Beer Advocate and Rate Beer, and we start talking about how these Imperial Stouts were considered to be the highest scoring beers by metric because they were hard to get, they were expensive, they are very, very tasty beers. But that rarity and scarcity created this market where people were trading just hundreds of dollars worth of lesser beers to get one bottle of some of these. And people would stand in line for hours and hours and hours to get these. I once drove to Winnipeg to get an Imperial Stout. I bought a case, but still, I drove to Winnipeg for beer in the middle of I think it was February. It wasn't a lot of fun. So Imperial Stout almost got a little bit of a bad name because all of these Imperial Stouts became almost more trading commodities than they did beers that you actually wanted to drink. And so Imperial Stout really hit its peak, I'd say about 2010, 2011, maybe into 2012, and then they almost fell off a cliff in terms of their crazy collectible value and the speculative market and everything else. They kind of went away. Now, they're still around. They're still excellent beers. We got 4 Imperial Stouts in front of us now, so they're not dead. But the idea that to make an Imperial Stout and have it be a success, it had to come in a wax-dipped glass bottle, and you only made 500 bottles, and you had to have a release party and everything else. Thankfully, that's gone away a little bit, and I think that's a good thing. So, Ego Death by Annex. We've had this on the shelves for a couple of weeks. Now, one thing I will say, I did, say I'm kind of glad that Imperial Stouts don't come in these glass bottles anymore. That's a bit of a mixed blessing. This 2009 Dark Lord, if I hadn't already opened it, would probably still be holding up just fine because it was aged or it was bottled in a glass bottle. It probably would be just fine. But I don't know how long you can really age something like an Imperial Stout in a can. And while this is drinking very nicely right now, I will say it's a tiny touch metallic. It's quite intensely bitter. I don't get a ton of kind of chocolate fudge or anything like you can get off some stouts. Now, that's not a criticism exactly, but I also know that, 18 months, 2 years in a bottle, a beer like this would mellow out and become a lot more generous. I don't know if you can do that in a can. This is not the All the Things train wreck you were expecting. Well, the All the Things is, and this gets to your initial snarky question that I had to kind of look up at the last second. I would actually lump All the Things in with what we have come to kind of term a pastry stout, which is a very sweet style of Imperial Stout. Very often they'll say it's a creme brulee stout or a Nanaimo stout or a Smores stout or a chocolate fudge sundae stout. That's a style that I started seeing in bottles around 2008. The one that to me was really the first to at least mass market was probably Southern Tier Brewing out of New York. I don't know if Southern Tier ever came to Canada, but they're pretty well coast to coast in the United States, and they had a lot of dessert stouts or pastry stouts. I can specifically remember the creme brulee stout from them was actually one that I saw almost everywhere. The other one that jumps immediately to mind, it came in a bright pink glass bottle with a donut on it. And it was by Rogue Brewing, and it was the Voodoo Donut Bacon Raspberry Sprinkle Donut or something. It was supposed to taste like this really famous donut from the Northern California area. And that was quite a big deal for a little while there. But that style, that sweeter style, it's very much a love it or hate it sort of thing. We're going to do two because it's a very important part of what we now consider Imperial Stout, is this sweeter style, which came out of these barrel-aged beers because that bourbon barrel aging does tend to lead to these beers being quite sweet. And as we moved out of kind of the older school ones like Bourbon County and Dark Lord, and we started moving into some of the newer school ones like the Cigar City Hunapoo's here, Hunapoo's is like already, I want to say this is probably a 2009 or 2010 bottling. And it's a malt beverage aged on Peruvian cocoa nibs, ancho and pasilla chilies, cinnamon, and Madagascar vanilla beans. And this is the bog standard. This is the base beer. They did, and I looked this up earlier today, they did 9 different variants in terms of different types of barrel aging. So they did a brandy barrel, they did a rye barrel, they did a bourbon barrel, they did all kinds of different barrels. And then they did, extra cinnamon, or this one used that Kopi Luwak Weasel Poop coffee, or they did a Blue Mountain coffee expression. They did all these different versions of Hunapoos, but they tended to be sweeter. They tended to be kind of the gateway into these heavily flavored, sweeter styles of stouts that we now think of as pastry stouts. So this all does kind of come out of this super collectible, look at me, rate beer advocate, super collectible era for Imperial Stouts. Whereas something like this is just very honest and very steely and very licoricey. I kind of like this style because it's not so heavily augmented and heavily adjuncted. Hello, Craig. Black licorice, like licorice all sorts. Hello, Justin. Let's see what else we got for comments here. I get a bit of a salty saline flavor with stouts. I don't know if that's the water or if good brewers adjust their water such that they would add a little more salt to make the water a little harder. And I realize that brewing salts don't mean sodium chloride. They tend to be a lot of other things. But I don't know. Is it the fact that your mouth is perceiving that intense bitterness and it's making you taste the salt because that you're perceiving everything else? I don't know, but you're right. I do get a saltiness, and that's different from what I get out of really well-aged stouts. Like when we see a beer that comes in and, it's 6 months in bourbon barrels, and then we buy a lot of it and it sits on the shelf for a year. When we get around to it and it's about 18 months old, that can have like a real like soy sauce, Worcester sauce, like umami character to it that I really, really like. And I think that's separate from the saltiness that we're getting out of this, which is kind of neat. Craig asks, why would the can matter? Because we know how things age in glass bottles. The bottle cap, of course, is the weak link there. But generally speaking, we have centuries and centuries experience of aging things in glass bottles. With the can, the aluminum is probably fine, but we don't really know about the plastic linings and the various linings that they put on the insides of these cans. I was doing some digging around on this because I remembered, like in the back of my mind, that there had been a program to do special cans that were designed for long-term aging of some of these like super high alcohol stouts, and they were going to be like a ceramic lined can. And I found some really good art, like lots of articles promising this technology was coming, it was going to be so great, and then crickets after a certain point. And I think they were developing it, but it never came out, is what it looks like to me. But yeah, it's not the aluminum can itself, it's the liner, whatever is keeping the beer from actually touching the metal. We're not sure how that holds up over years and years and years.
I've aged a few cans at home.
And?
Most of it seems fine.
Okay, Nigel chimed in there. He's aged a bunch of the Blind Man high alcohol stuff that comes out in cans at home and seems to have come out fine. But whereas, now we have a couple of years of experience with that versus decades or centuries. Dustin, you don't get much caramel at all, and you shouldn't on this one. The first two, you shouldn't get that caramelly sweet milk chocolate into dessert style. Two reasons for that. One, they're aiming to ferment this drier. They will bottle it or can it before the fermentation, or when the fermentation is completely done and the beer is quite dry. Whereas these, they might stop it a little bit earlier and leave a little more residual sweetness in the beer. The other reasons is like this, they've added lactose or milk sugar to leave the beer a little bit sweeter, and that's a deliberate choice. And yeah, those soft, sweet notes that you get, those will generally be coming off of your sweeter stouts. Or this beer, but a little bit older. I apologize in advance here. I'm having to do the thing where I have to refresh my phone every time I want new comments.
I put it up there.
Oh, you put it up there. Thanks. I genuinely didn't notice. Well done, me.
I don't think it's that helpful because you can't really scroll through the damn.
No, I can't, but I can see Eric's. Is that the case of the keg aging we've been doing with the barley wine? Yeah, so we threw that keg of 2017 Blue Monk barley wine by Brewster's Brewing in the warehouse, 3 years ago, and we just tapped it now. We didn't keep it cold. We kept it cool because our warehouse is somewhat temperature controlled. Not perfect, but well enough for what we need it for. We basically just let it sit. Keg aging, there's a lot more research for. I actually went to Bell's Brewing, and they make a really famous Imperial Stout. These guys are in Michigan, called Expedition Stout. And on the day I was there, they actually had a vertical of kegs of 8 different years of their Expedition Stout was the event they were doing. So I got to try Expedition Stout. I would have been there about 2014, so I was probably having it back to about 2006. So really, really neat event. And yeah, keg aging for Imperial Stout seems to work fine. I actually don't know if kegs are lined with anything or if it's just steel right on beer. I genuinely don't know. Never seen the inside of a keg. I really should have brought a spill bucket for this one, but I didn't. So
Allow me.
So away we go. Blind Men. So very first thing, 11% alcohol. This is the strongest thing we have on the table as our second beer here. Thank you to Blind Men for the tiny cans of Imperial Stout. I no longer will feel horribly guilty for opening an entire can of Imperial Stout or for myself.
They are the cutest.
They are the cutest little things. I love these little things. They're great. So here we have our first edition. This is with coffee, and it's Birdie Coffee Company, which is kind of cute. I'm guessing they are local to Lacombe. They actually don't say if Birdie is from Lacombe, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, Imperial Stout with coffee. This is not uncommon. When we're talking about adjuncts being added to stouts, of course, we have oatmeal stouts. Coffee stouts are probably the second most common. Chocolate stouts are very, very common as well. Hot pepper stouts really had a moment there about 2013, 2014, and then kind of died away. I still really like them, but they're not really that common. I'm leaving out barrel aging just for the minute because, you know, it's a bit of a different process. Vanilla, I've never really liked, but vanilla is super common. I'm trying to think what else is out there. I mean, there's tons of other options. I've seen it aged on nuts. I had a hazelnut Imperial Stout that it was interesting. Yeah, lots of different things. Oh, wow. I really get the coffee immediately. That actually just smells like cold brew coffee. That's actually quite something. Sorry, I know it's a coffee stout. It's like, yeah, it should smell like coffee, you bloody idiot. But no, it actually smells more like coffee than I'd have expected. And Chad says, just steel for the inside of the kegs. Thank you, Chad. And yeah, I realized it when I said it, that, yeah, Lacombe probably seems a little too small to have its own independent coffee roaster, but do you want to find out where Birdie Coffee is coming from for me?
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure.
It's Birdie with a Y.
Red Deer.
Red Deer, apparently. Okay, that makes sense.
Maybe.
Chad says he gets an Irish cream nose on this. You know, you're not wrong. I'm going to say it's more like Irish coffee because I get like, I know this isn't whiskey barrel aged, but does anybody else get like a real whiskey note off of this? Not like Scotch whiskey so much, but like a nice rye whiskey, like a Canadian whiskey. It's not dilly enough for like American rye, but if you told me this was like, you know, a lower alcohol stout with a shot of Canadian whiskey in it, I wouldn't call you wrong. There's a real note to that with this that I really like. And yet to a point, I don't find this as high alcohol tasting as I do the Ego Death. I think this is actually maybe a little rounder because of the coffee. I can certainly feel it right here. 2 beers in and we're already into the warm cheeks, but that was what we were going to get on Imperial Stout night, wasn't it?
Birdie Coffee. There you go.
Yeah.
On screen.
Depth charges.
It says Central Alberta. I'm guessing Red Deer. Small batch coffee roaster cafe soon to be operating in Gasoline Alley. So
No.
that's just a guess, but
Cool. Apparently, Lacombe has lost their independent cannoli joint, which also moved to Red Deer, which is probably very sad. I've been to Lacombe once. I went to Blind Man, had a really nice time. It was great. Couldn't have too good a time because I was driving back to Lethbridge that same day, but yeah, it was a really cute little spot. I understand they're probably 3 times as large now as when I was there. They only had, I think, 1.5 bays, and now they're most of the building they're in. So, yeah, I do need to get back to Lacombe. After COVID, I think I really need to just kind of get out and around and visit some breweries again because it's been a long time since I've been able to do that. You know, I've seen a lot of loading docks. I was in Calgary yesterday, which is something that will come up after beer 3. Got a little bit of a treat for you folks for next week. I have more of all of these in the store. Yes, Kevin. I probably have the least of the Ego Death. I have plenty of Night Kitchen, at least a full shelf of the Nanaimo bar, and about a shelf of Blind Men, but we keep twice as much on the shelf because we can stack these too high, so I have lots of these. Ego Death, I think I only ever got 2 flats. 1 flat went to the tasting, and it sold quite well, but I only have 3 or 4 4-packs left of this one. So if this was your favorite, or ends up being your favorite at the end, you might want to hurry in for this one. The rest of it, nah, don't worry about it. We'll have that for a week, 10 days yet, at least. Yeah, Gasoline Alley's in Red Deer. Yeah, proper Irish coffee with Irish whiskey and whipped cream, exactly. It's beautiful. Well, that was an absolute delight. Okay. Now, order on these. I genuinely don't know whether we're going to go Nanaimo bar before S'mores or S'mores before Nanaimo bar. You know, there's not really classical beer tasting notes for which of those goes first. I'm going to go with the lower alcohol first at 7.9 versus 9 flat. Without doing them in advance, at which point I wouldn't make sense doing the tasting later. I kind of got to go with that. So we're going to open our pastry stout section with the 88 no-bake Nanaimo Bar Imperial Stout. Now, pastry stouts are not everyone's taste. I get that. I quite like them in small doses, but these are things where I'm really going to enjoy this can. I don't know if I'd want an entire 4-pack.
See, dude.
I understand the baby cans now. Yeah, it's real strong. You don't want like a whole lot more than that. Sean, are you attempting like Zoom babysitting? That's amazing if so. Night Kitchen's brilliant, but it has lactose and it killed you. Oh, well, so does the no-bake, so good luck with that, Craig. Yeah, they're both actually lactose. I wonder if that really is becoming like a hallmark of these pastry stouts. Because I'll be honest, I haven't had a Southern Tier creme brulee stout in a very long time. But I'm trying to think back on some of the other stouts that I've had in this style, and like, you know, color me surprised when I say, oh, well, the Bell's Special Double Cream Stout, which is possibly my favorite sweet stout of all time. Again, never sold here. It's only sold in Michigan and areas near-ish. I've seen it as far west as North Dakota. But that's definitely a lactose stout. I don't know, maybe all pastry stouts do use lactose. And then, yes, good morning. There's Nanaimo bar. There's milk chocolate. There's caramel. There's honestly something kind of maple syrupy. Vanilla's right there. Lots of vanilla. I'm not convinced that comes off like real vanilla. I think that kind of comes off like... Remember those Good Humor, like, vanilla ice cream cups that, like, the Swans truck would drop off and that sort of thing? Yeah. Kind of reminds... The vanilla note reminds me of, like, those little Good Humor cups. Tootsie Roll and fudge, and then, yes, there's the coconut. I don't really smell the coconut, which is interesting. But I sure get it in the mouth. Good in small doses, so we ship it a 16-ounce can. Yes, they do, and I love them for it. Bloody madman. I'm also picking up something cinnamon. Actually, quite profoundly cinnamon on that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but I don't think there's cinnamon in, like, Nanaimo bars, is there?
No.
No, shouldn't be. Anybody else getting cinnamon? Interesting. Craig just swore. Dessert in a glass. Vanilla and maple ice cream-like substance. Yes, it is not real ice cream. Let's be clear. The Schwann's Good Humor cups or whatever they were not real ice cream. They were edible oil product. Yes, they were. But they had a very particular vanilla character to them.
Delicious and part of all of our childhood.
Yes, part of all of our childhood, and we're all going to die 5 years younger because they were. Ooh. Now, I missed some comments, unfortunately, because of the Facebook hating my phone. Last one I have is Craig just swore. What do we have right above that?
Craig just swore.
Yeah, what do we have before that?
What do you got there? I can't see that for
Keep going.
tiddlywinks.
No one can. The screen's great. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Shit.
Keep going. Oh, there we go. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, and Craig actually did like it, but he can't have it because it's got the lactose. That's a terrible shame for Craig, really. Yeah, this is, Dana, I feel bad because you can't get this. This is, again, not always my style, but I like this. It's so opulent and decadent. And if this was closed and it made you work for every little bit you got out of it, this just wants to give you everything and let you sort out what you actually get out of it. I quite like. I do get some of that with this. Now, to be fair, I mean, a Nanaimo bar is broadly the same thing. It's chocolate and custard. Cadbury's would probably prefer I call it what was in that egg custard, but instead of goo. But you know, here we are. Oh, the no-bake in a vanilla ice cream float. I love beer floats. I haven't had one in forever. The last one I had was probably in, when I went out to the West Coast and had it at Pelican Brewing. I had their Imperial Stout with a big scoop of vanilla ice cream, and then everyone else like left me there because they all wanted to like go drink rare lambics in a hotel room, and I just wanted to have this delicious beer float. So I watched a good chunk of a hockey game alone at a bar, and I think I had 2 more of those Imperial Stout ice cream floats. I used to be really fat, by the way, and this is a large reason why. Okay, let us get. Oh. So good and so much pain. Oh, it's going to hurt so much more in the morning, Craig. Can we talk about the difference in brewing method for stouts compared to, say, a lager or lighter beer? I'm actually going to let Chad comment on that because he does more brewing than I do. You have a lot less efficiency. You have to add a lot more barley to it to make these. Like it's a massive amount of work. But Chad's actually our brewing expert, so I'm going to let him cover that one by text. And I'm going to just jump into Shameless Promotion Corner here for a minute. Because actually, I'm looking forward to this one. I normally, excuse it and walk away from it. It's like, okay, well, we have to talk about what's coming up. Damn it, I'm excited about what we have coming up in the next couple of weeks here. So let's start with beer tasting next week. And these 2 tastings are linked. They do kind of follow a theme. They are best ofs. Because I wanted to talk about the things I really loved. I mean, I got to do wine and beer tasting for, kind of 9 months of a year, doing them more or less on a weekly basis. And we tasted a lot of different stuff. This is what, 35 for our beer tasting?
This is 35.
This is 35?
Yeah.
So 35 by 4. So yeah, we did 140 beers over that time. Now, we had some repeats, obviously, but, 140 beers over that period is nuts. Well, I had some favorites, and we had some beers that we didn't even get enough of to even put on the tasting, and some things that quite shamefully got missed. So I took a bit of a walk around, and, we are going to have to talk about some of the beers that we couldn't do, like Left My Wallet in El Segundo, Part-Time Model, the super rad Vienna lagers that we got from Annex and from Snake Lake, the Fieldberry Crushed Sour from Snake Lake. There's so much stuff that I can't do now that we got this year that were amazing. But of beers that I can get right now, these were my 4 favorites from 2020. And I did force myself to keep it to 1 per brewery as well. So we're going to do the Cabin Retro Spectrum, the Two Crows Jamboree, the Establishment Jamrock, and then one we've never had before, at least not on the channel, the Dial-Up IPA by 88. I literally drove to Calgary yesterday because this is tap room only at 88. But the last time I was there, I happened to see cans of this sitting around, so I knew they were canning it soon. And I texted them and said, hey, look, I'm going to do my best of. And Dial-Up wasn't just one of my best of. It was my favorite beer I drank all of 2020. I have to talk about it. Can I get enough to do the tasting? So we have some of the Dial-Up IPA. We have a few extra 4-packs around. They're going to be on tomorrow or the next day. Well, not the next day. Next day we're closed. But yeah, this is my best of. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I want you to come to me with your own best ofs. We're going to ask Aaron his favorites. It's just going to be kind of a fun hangout tasting. It's going to be a lot of fun. So after that, we have kind of another tasting in sort of the same vein. This is our upcoming Friday night wine tasting for January the 8th. Now, for those of you who've been around for a while, we've done a top 10 wines of the previous year every single year, except last year because COVID happened, since 2004. Every year we've done this. And now the normal way we do this is we all get together on like a Sunday night or after work on like an evening, and we order in pizza, and just, it's my senior staff, a couple of like invited guests. It's the people who I know and trust to know enough about wine that they can really not only bring up things they think are brilliant, but they can make a case for them, and they can sway me on why these wines are brilliant. Well, Devin and I actually spent the last week talking about this and what we wanted to have. And we've picked wines 5 through 10, and we're happy with that. But unanimously, well, mostly unanimously, there's one wine here that he and I fought about a little bit. Mostly unanimously, we said these 4 should be our top 4. But in what order? I want everybody who's joined us on this journey for this year to come help us pick. You know, if I've been talking to you about wine, teaching you about wine for like a year. If you don't know enough now about wine to help with this, I've been doing a completely shit job. So I want you to come and argue with me. Tell me why these are the wines. Which of these should be our wine of the year? Because that's what we're picking here. Wine of the year and 3 runners up. And it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. So we've got 2 reds, a rosé, and a white. I think all of them absolute stars. We're going to do it for $80. Devin fought me on that a little bit, but we're going to make it work. It's going to be fun. So that's next week. Beer tasting, wine tasting. Also, good news on the whiskey front. Just before Christmas, I think it was either the 23rd or Christmas Eve, the AJLC actually reversed their position on the little tiny sample bottles. So we can do whiskey tasting again in little tiny sample bottles. So I ordered those from Uline this morning. So I have 144 tiny bottles for future whiskey tasting and spirits tasting.
Totally rules.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. We've got that coming up, probably not right away, because I'm going to take a week off in January at some point here, but coming up in the quite immediate future at least. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
That rules.
Yeah, that's going to be so good. I'm really excited for that. Can you jump up for the comments? I have nothing above Chad saying effing jamboree.
Let me see.
Thank you, Chad. Not like that potty mouth Craig.
You need above Chad?
I need above Chad.
Well, I don't either. Effing jamboree.
Yeah, I get nothing past that, unfortunately. Can you scroll this up for me?
Yep. Doink.
Keep going down, actually. Down, 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 and down. Keep going. I'll tell you when. Keep going.
Just a sec. Keep
Yeah.
pretending that.
Keep pretending that you're actually scrolling. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into the night kitchen so you're not all watching Aaron scroll. So this one's from Cabin. This is their, okay, let's be fair. You all knew this was coming when you asked for Imperial Stout Week. You knew this was going to be a giant mess. And it's, to be fair, less messy than I thought it was going to be so far. Oh, wow, that does actually smell like graham crackers. More than I would have expected. You know what? If you made a comment above Craig saying effing jamboree, yeah, we've lost you. Chad's favorite beer is retrospective. That's fun. Jamaic dial-ups your absolute fave. Nice, Kevin. Yes, Craig was in earlier to get a 4-pack of that. Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Julie. And we appreciate you you stopping by. We will enjoy our giant messes of Imperial Stouts and our horrible, horrible Thursday mornings to follow. Nothing like being hungover on New Year's Eve, as opposed to New Year's Day. Oh, Chad, you came through like an absolute star. Thank you for that. That's perfect. You know what? I'm really, Craig, I will say cherries. And this, okay. Very, very different beer, very different quality from All the Things. But you remember how much All the Things tasted like cherries, even though it was the only thing they didn't add to that damn beer? I'm getting a little bit of that candied cherry, maraschino cherry character here too. And I wonder if it's something that's just endemic to these sweeter styles of stouts. I will actually go back to the no-bake, probably on camera, and see if that has that as well, but they just about ate it off camera.
The entire ring off. Why are there cherries?
Why are there cherries? No one knows. Actually, I'm very curious why there are cherries. I said that very glibly. No one knows, but I'm curious why are there cherries? Hey, there are genuinely people who like all the things. I know that, you know, our blooper reel is really just going to be me talking about all the things for 5 minutes. Are you on the Nanaimo or are you on the Smores? Yeah, it's a big change from the coffee, isn't it?
All the things should come with a trigger warning.
I know. I feel a little bad about just how much I laid into that beer. It was fun, and I will do it again to a different beer. But I feel a little bad. Not really. Okay. So, s'mores. So we're thinking about chocolate, graham cracker, marshmallow. How do you capture marshmallow in a beer? I mean, how would you capture custard in a beer? This actually came off kind of custardy. It was actually quite good. I don't know. Anybody getting something like distinctly marshmallowy out of this? Because I get the chocolate. I get something graham cracker-y. Send a fort back to the clowns that brewed all the things. This is how it's done. Okay, that is kind of mean. And yeah, I think the cherries are out in full force again. And let's be fair, like when we did that, that was Collective Arts that did all the things. Everything else we had from them, that tasting was great. Like that dry hop sour they did, the jam up the mash, that was fantastic. It was just the one beer. And I wonder if this cherry thing is just, if it's a bit of a stumbling block with sweeter stouts. Because this does have it as well. Now, I'm not going to say this is anywhere close to all the things. It's not. This doesn't have that nightmare quality. But definitely has the cherries. I think that's really interesting. Which is funny, because the first time I tried this, I didn't have it out of a glass. I had it right out of the can. And I didn't pick that up. And yeah, I know, PTSD. All the PTSD. Graham crackers, yes. You know, I'm sipping on this and thinking rankings. I don't know. There's something about this that isn't doing it for me. And that's a shame, because I love cabin. We did like an all cabin week. What, like well, not last week, we didn't have a tasting. Week before, it was like a cabin love-in, because we did the single saturation tasting.
Right, yeah.
This is...
Yeah.
I'm not convinced by Night Kitchen, to be honest. And maybe I would have been more if somebody hadn't put all the things in my head, or I hadn't seen the cherry thing and thought immediately of all the things. Maybe it is all the things PTSD, but yeah, I don't know. Night Kitchen's not doing for me at the minute. What does it really mean to add lactose to a beer? Lactose is a more complex sugar. It takes longer for it to be able to ferment. In fact, sweet yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, really struggles with any of your more complex sugars. So it actually will not ferment easily. So if you add lactose as opposed to, say, sucrose or fructose, only your simpler sugars, it will stick around, much like adding caramel to something. It will stick around because it'll ferment a little bit, but it won't ferment to the point where the product will end up higher in alcohol and dry. The sweetness will be pervasive. It's simply throwing a complex enough sugar at a simple yeast that it won't turn into alcohol. It will stick around and add sweetness. Is the cherry thing related to lactose? I don't know, Eric. That's probably a better question for like a brewmaster, which I'm not. I literally drew the comparison with this and all the things both being sweeter stouts as I was tasting it. So that was clearly not part of my research. I don't know. I would be way, way out in left field on that. I'd be guessing. So we have a 2341, 2134. Ooh. I'm going to go back to Ego Death. I feel like this is a mistake because Ego Death's going to be, well, A, it's 9% alcohol, but B, like Ego Death's, I think, going to seem really austere and really challenging after how giving the no bake and the Night Kitchen were. Actually, the little bit of no bake and Night Kitchen on the inside of the glass that was left over is kind of brightening up the Ego Death. I know.
I think this is my least favorite.
Yeah, I think for me it's going to go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So no bake, Ego Death, the Coffee Imperial, and then Night Kitchen for me, which is not how I expected tonight to go. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to actually ask the next time I'm talking to the folks at maybe establishment. I won't ask the guys at cabin because it might be a little transparent about what I'm asking about. But the next time I see like Dave Ronneberg, I'll ask him about the cherries thing with Imperial Stouts. Although I wonder, has anybody ever had like an Imperial Stout from establishment? They've done some high alcohol stuff. They have some double IPAs and everything. And some of their barrel-aged stuff gets up there a little bit, but they're like more like Imperial Stours.
I don't think so.
I've never seen like an Imperial Stout. Now, I know that I've seen them talk about doing pastry stouts potentially, but I've never actually had anything like that from them. So, no. You know, the more I have that Ego Death, the more I like it. It also might have something to do with it being 9%.
Trappist Pilsners. Imperial
Mouthfeel.
Katharina Sour.
Yeah, the Imperial Katharina Sour. That was super good. That was the Super Fusion. Heather has 3214. Deirdre, please knock on the mouth and door and wish Craig a Happy New Year. Poor Craig. Give him something less illness-inducing.
That was good.
Deirdre has 3241. 3142. Well, probably 3124. Yeah, Chad and I have the same rankings. 2314. I'm glad somebody had 2 first, because that was a beer that deserved it.
That's my favorite.
You like 2?
Yeah.
You like the coffee stout?
2134 is mine.
2134?
2134.
You don't like the sweetness on these so much?
Blech.
Yeah, that's fair. Pastry stouts are not
The
for
Night
everyone.
Kitchen can get the fuck out.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah.
And if your comment on rankings was above Deirdre's, I apologize. I can't see it because my phone really hates Facebook comments. We're going to work on fixing that.
We'll figure that out.
I have a theory.
Okay, good.
Yep, I have an Android tablet that I literally never use for anything.
Ah!
I'll just load Facebook on it and just put it there, and it
We've
hopefully will not
solved
do
it.
this. Yeah, I think that's going to be the answer.
Well,
I'm just going to see if there's any more questions here. Wait, sorry, does Hell's Basement not have a brewer there anymore? Now I'm very... Hold on, we're not shutting this thing down. Okay, how do they not have a brewer? How does Hell's Basement not have a brewer? Because that's not how breweries work. Unless they've stopped brewing in their own facility and they're doing it like contract somewhere. What the heck is going on at Hell's Basement? Now I'm very curious. Because I feel like as, a brewery, having a brewer is, kind of essential. Not at Cooley, obviously, but we're not going to get into that tonight. Yeah, my Android tablet will melt probably, but it was free when I signed up for a new cell phone plan, so I don't actually care. Two's just leagues ahead tonight. You really like the Blindman. I'm right there, but for me, it's just the Ego Death. I'm going to regret this so much in the morning. That's all right. It's after Christmas. We're not that busy. If I show up a little
we're
late...
going to listen to rock and roll instead of Christmas carols.
Yes, although we did have fun with the... so for those who don't know, when we're cleaning up and tearing down this giant film studio setup thing that Aaron sets up and takes down every time. Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
We do blast some actually pretty amazing music. And last time was very Christmas themed.
It was, yeah.
We had the Ventures Christmas album.
Ventures Christmas album was good. What else?
We had Christmas at Ground Zero by Weird Al.
Oh yeah, Christmas is Ground Zero.
We had quite a bit of really messed up Christmases. It was great.
Waitresses.
Oh, they locked out the brewer at Hell's Basement a while ago, and that's why they haven't come with anything new for a while. That's wild.
Dramatic.
Yeah. That's kind of nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's wild. Okay. I mean, good to know. I mean, to be fair, we kind of stopped dealing with Hell's Basement organically because they never had anything new. Interesting. Yeah, cheers, Justin. Looks like 2021 tastings are going to be on a good tack.
Yeah.
We got some other things that we've got coming up. I am going to get the Heathens guy on here, Jeff. He's going to be joining us sometime in January or February because Heathens Brewing is super cool and kick-ass, and they're 100% gluten-free. They're using the old recipe. Sorry, I apologize to anyone whose first beer tasting this is because I'm getting way too wrapped up in the Hell's Basement drama, but it's so interesting to me because I didn't hear about it till tonight. Wow. They have the old recipes, but... Huh. Okay, wow. That's quite something. That's very sad about Hell's Basement. I really liked their beer for a while there. Okay, I think we'll wrap her up there, Aaron, before this gets even more off the rails than it has.
Yeah, it's gonna
And let's be fair, for Imperial Stout Week, the week that was known to be a pending disaster,
Yeah, this is limbo.
this is fine.
Yeah.
This could have been worse.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, you did almost knock over the rig.
I did.
We did lose all the lighting and some of the sound for half the tasting.
Half
Yep.
the rig, yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I don't think I swore once.
You did.
Did I?
But that's okay.
That's fine. It's fine.
It is fine.
It's 2020.
Yeah.
We all get a
Still.
do-over next year.
Yeah. Mulligan.
Mulligan till next year. And that's when you'll talk to me next. We will see all of you in a week. See you all in 7 days or next year, whatever you like. But we're done with 2020, and we are done with Imperial Stout Week. We have done it. We never have to do it again. And it was less messy than some of our other ones, which certainly less messy than Strong Beer Week, because that was a disaster. We may have slightly pre-drank
This is
for
like
that one.
maybe third.
Yeah,
We're not sure.
we're not
Something
sure.
like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for putting up with us for another 45 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever the bloody hell it's been. All right. Thank you all so much and good night.